Thank you for tuning into our breaking news coverage. The decision has been made. The National Assembly today approved a motion to impeach President Yoon over his controversial martial law declaration more than 10 days ago. We go straight over to our correspondent Shin Ha-young, who is standing by at the National Assembly. Ha-young, can you start by walking us through the results?
Sure, Jung-min. Today, lawmakers at a plenary session of the National Assembly approved the second impeachment motion of the President Yoon. And unlike the first vote, which was dropped as it did not meet the minimum number of participants required, all 300 lawmakers took part this time. And the motion passed with 204 votes in favor and 85 against, 3 abstentions, and 8 invalid votes, meeting the required 2/3 majority or 200 votes. And earlier today, the ruling People Power Party held a meeting for over 5 hours and decided to participate in the vote while adopting a party consensus against impeachment. And ahead of the vote, 199 lawmakers from the main opposition Democratic Party and others, including 7 PPP members, supported the motion to impeach the president. And assuming all opposition lawmakers voted in favor, at least 12 PPP members broke ranks, or up to 23 when including abstentions and invalid votes. And since the vote was anonymous, it suggests that many lawmakers voted based on their personal convictions.
The results must have brought mixed reactions from the rival parties. How are both sides responding?
Well, the PPP lawmakers immediately left the session right after the vote results were declared. And about 2 hours after the motion passed, party leader Han Dong-un made a brief comment on the results, saying that he takes the results seriously. Take a listen.
I take today's result very seriously. As the leader of the ruling party, I pledge to correct the mistakes with the people and protect the Constitution and democracy.
When asked if he regretted encouraging the impeachment, Han said he believed it was urgent to suspend the president's duties and that he focused solely on the country and the people, adding that he does not regret it. And all 5 Supreme Council members of the PPP offered to resign today. And meanwhile, the opposition cheered and clapped as the motion passed during the plenary session. The main opposition Democratic Party, which led the push for the motion, called it a victory for the people and democracy. Take a listen.
The passage of this impeachment motion is a great victory for the people. The December 3rd martial law crisis remains unresolved. The Democratic Party will do its utmost to swiftly launch a special investigation into Yoon on insurrection.
Meanwhile, after the motion was passed, Assembly Speaker Woo Won-sik signed Yoon's impeachment resolution. It was submitted to the Constitutional Court at 6:15 p.m. by the chair of the National Assembly's Legislative and Judiciary Committee, and the copy has also arrived at the presidential office. Now, this marks the 3rd passage of the impeachment motion of a sitting president in South Korea's history, following those of former President Roh Moo-hyun in 2004 and Park Geun-hye in 2016. That's all I have for this hour. Jung-min.
Our political correspondent Shin Ha-young live from the National Assembly. Thank you. Now, with the National Assembly's resolution to begin impeachment proceedings delivered to the president, we go over to our correspondent at the top office on how the news has been taken by Yoon and what comes next under Prime Minister Han Duck-soo's acting presidency. So-young, the president released a statement about an hour after the impeachment motion passed at the National Assembly. Let's go over what he had to say and what's next for the president.
Sure, Jung-min. The President seemed to accept the National Assembly's resolution to open impeachment proceedings against him, as he acknowledged the temporary transfer of his duties to Prime Minister Han Duck-soo, who is, of course, now the acting president. And in his address to the nation, President Yoon, he reflected back on his 4 major policy reforms, his efforts to boost South Korea's export industries, and his attempts to raise South Korea's global profile as well. And he expressed concern there that his efforts might have been in vain, but he pledged to, he said that he would not give up, and this really indicates what he said before about fighting till the end, perhaps to justify his imposition of martial law.
저는 지금 잠시 멈춰 서지만 지난 2년 반 국민과 함께 걸어온 미래를 향한 여정은 결코 멈춰 서서는 안 될 것입니다. 저는 결코 포기하지 않겠습니다.
As Parliament's resolution on his impeachment was delivered to the presidential office, Yoon has lost his executive powers as of around 7:42 p.m. on Saturday. Prime Minister Han Duck-soo will now act as the country's interim leader for as long as the 180 days that the Constitutional Court could take to make a ruling on the president's impeachment. Only Yoon's title as president would be retained, as a suspended president cannot exercise any powers, including diplomatic authority, appointment or dismissal of public officials, or command of the armed forces. He cannot receive reports or give orders to public officials, such as the Prime Minister or cabinet ministers, nor can he attend National Assembly sessions. However, the president is entitled to protocol privileges such as residing in the presidential residence, using official vehicles and aircraft, and being protected by security services. The court's ruling took 63 days for former President Roh Moo-hyun and 91 days for former President Park Geun-hye. If the court judges agree on impeachment, there will be 60 days to call a presidential election.
Now, state governance will be in the hands of Prime Minister Han. So walk us through how the system works and how Han plans to handle his role.
So shortly after the National Assembly decided on impeachment, to begin the impeachment process, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo spoke briefly with the press and pledged to do his best to fulfill his newfound duties.
I feel the weight of my duty. During this difficult time, I will put all my strength and effort into stably conducting state governance.
He gave an address a short while ago saying that he will do his utmost, coordinate with Parliament and also safeguard national security amid various domestic and external difficulties facing the country. According to insiders at the Prime Minister's office, a stable transition is expected. That's because Prime Minister Han himself, he's got relevant experience of working for a caretaker government, having served as Chief of the Office for Government Coordination under acting President Ko Gun in 2004 when former President Roh Moo-hyun was impeached. Han is expected to work from the government complex in Gwanghwamun in central Seoul rather than the Yongsan presidential office, in line with past practices. He will likely hold an emergency cabinet meeting soon as he assumes interim leadership of the country. Also, he's expected to have calls with ministers or acting ministers responsible for foreign affairs, defence and public safety, as well as the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, to issue urgent instructions regarding security and public safety. And on that note, he's also likely to hold a National Security Council meeting. The Presidential Security Service also put out an announcement saying that it's ready to assume the protection of the acting president and his spouse. The security measures for the acting president, Han Duck-soo, will be equivalent to those provided to President Yoon. The PSS added that security measures for President Yoon Suk-yeol will continue as usual regardless of his suspension of duties.
And Soo-young, as per President Yoon, he faces impeachment and insurrection charges against him. You've been reporting that he's been preparing a legal team. What can we expect to see from him?
Sure. So as far as we've heard from President Yoon, it seems like he was anticipating and rather preferring to take on an impeachment process than resign voluntarily, as he's emphasized in his most recent speech prior to today. And he's defended his decision that imposing martial law, he said that the opposition had made it impossible for the government to function as they repeatedly tried to impeach him and members of his administration, as well as obstruct advancements on major policies. So he said he was not trying to cause insurrection, but was trying to rather defend the constitutional order from the opposition. And that's really expected to be his line of defense against the investigations on possible insurrection, as well as his impeachment case at the Constitutional Court. And there were reports earlier this week that Yoon's office had been reaching out to legal professionals in an apparent move to recruit a team of experts to defend him.
Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young, thanks for the updates. Now, the legal battle begins between President Yoon and the impeachment motion. The two sides will make their cases at the Constitutional Court. While the law guarantees a decision by the court in 180 days, in the past two impeachment cases, it only took 2 or 3 months. Our Kim Do-yeon explains more.
Now, as per the procedure, whether to oust President Yoon Yeol will be decided by the Constitutional Court. The National Assembly will faithfully take part in the decision.
All eyes are now on the Constitutional Court. At least 6 out of 9 will have to agree with the reasons behind President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment motion within the next 180 days by law. First was Yoon's declaration of martial law within the authority of a president granted by the Constitution, or did the reasons for the declaration not meet the criteria of a constitutional declaration? Also, the impeachment motion included an allegation of Yoon committing insurrection, as his deployment of troops to the National Assembly to stop it from operating was an act of rebellion with the intent to undermine constitutional order. As the court reviews the impeachment motion, there will be open public verbal arguments made from the two parties at the court. President Yoon Suk-yeol already defended himself from these claims and will finalize his team of attorneys.
제가 대통령으로서 발령한 이번 비상 조치는 대한민국의 헌정 질서와 국헌을 망가뜨리려는 것이 아니라 국민들에게 망국의 위기 상황을 알려드려 헌정 질서와 국헌을 지키고 회복하기 위한 것입니다.
The chair of the Parliament's Legislation and Judiciary Committee, Chung Chung-rae, will represent the side that's pushing for this impeachment. The main opposition Democratic Party of Korea lawmaker is also the one who handed the copy of the impeachment resolution to the Constitutional Court.
If it weren't for the people who stopped the martial law forces, the National Assembly wouldn't have had the time to vote on lifting the emergency martial law, as guaranteed by the law. Today's impeachment motion was possible because of the people's protection.
Right now, there are 3 vacancies on the bench, which could cause a delay in the decision. But the Speaker of the National Assembly pledged that these vacancies will be filled as soon as possible. While there are 180 days to decide, the past 2 impeachments didn't take that long. It took the court 2 months to decide that the impeachment of President Roh Moo-hyun was not constitutional, and he went back to his post. It took 3 months for the court to decide Park Geun-hye's impeachment was according to the Constitution, effectively kicking off a presidential election season. The number of verbal arguments also varies between the past 2 cases, and while the president is required to be at the hearings, they can be excused with a reason. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Now let's go over to Yeol, where large-scale rallies took place throughout the day. Our correspondent Park Ko-nu is standing by to tell us more. Ko-nu, how's the atmosphere like there now after the impeachment motion was passed? How people gathered there have been reacting?
Yes, so good evening, Jungmin. I'm currently standing right in front of the National Assembly in Yeol, where millions of protesters actually participate here to gather here to protest against President Yoon. Many of them have stayed here for hours to celebrate the passing of the impeachment motion, even though the temperature has been staying at 0 degrees Celsius all day. After the results were announced, people started cheering and singing along to popular K-pop songs, also known as the impeachment playlist that's been played at rallies. They also brought their favorite K-pop artist light sticks to use while singing along. And here's one protester, what he said. Listen to what one protester said.
I am really happy that the impeachment motion was passed with such enthusiasm from the people, and I am excited about the new world that will unfold. I am hopeful that we can become a country where everyone lives together in harmony.
4 hours have now passed since the impeachment motion was passed, And many people are continuing to leave the area. But as you can see behind me, there are still scores of people that are remaining to protest for President Yoon's impeachment and also his arrest. Unlike the festive atmosphere here and also near Yeol, the large-scale counter-protest supporting President Yoon that took place in Jongno District, Central Seoul, has been filled with anger. Some even burst into tears upon hearing the result, and many left the area almost immediately after the impeachment motion was passed. These people are set to hold daily protests from tomorrow in front of the Constitutional Court, advocating for the invalidity of the impeachment motion.
So there were many people there. How did the capital manage the situation?
Yeah, so the Seoul city government has announced several safety measures to manage the crowd. It said it has deployed over 1,000 additional security staff along with scores of traffic officers across Seoul. Staff will also keep an eye on traffic and CCTV to monitor the crowd density. Police officials have also urged people to use public transport instead of their own cars due to the traffic. Subway services, especially for lines 5 and 9, passing through Yeol Station, will be increased today if needed. That's all I have for you now. Back to you, Jungmin.
All right, our Park Gun-woo reporting live from Central Seoul. Thank you. The dramatic turn in South Korea's political landscape has captured global attention, with foreign media outlets providing real-time coverage and reporting on various aspects of the impeachment vote that took place this afternoon. Or Moon Hae-ryun has more.
The world tuned in as South Korea's National Assembly voted to impeach President Yoon Suk-yeol, an event drawing extensive coverage from major international media outlets. The New York Times reported that the National Assembly's decision to suspend President Yoon over his controversial martial law declaration comes as the latest twist in a turbulent term, while the Washington Post highlighted that South Korea now faces a prolonged period of uncertainty, with the Constitutional Court tasked with deciding Yoon's fate, a process that could take up to 6 months. The Associated Press detailed the chaotic timeline since Yoon declared martial law on December 3rd, calling the sequence of events a whirlwind that has shaken one of Asia's most robust democracies. Major outlets based in Asia, including the likes of Japanese broadcasters, provided real-time coverage, while others gave the story significant attention. Foreign media also analyzed the political divisions within Yoon's ruling People Power Party, which was seen as pivotal to the impeachment vote. Reuters noted that despite hopes for party unity, an internal backlash against Yoon's confrontational speeches led to fractures within his political base. CNN reported that People Power Party leaders initially resisted impeachment, but eventually joined the opposition due to widespread public anger and growing political unrest. International outlets voiced concerns over the impeachment's implications for foreign policy, especially with US President-elect Donald Trump due to take office in January. The BBC pointed out that the leadership vacuum comes at a precarious time for South Korea, citing ongoing threats from North Korea and the potential disruption of diplomatic ties. Public response to the impeachment vote also drew attention. The Guardian contrasted the celebratory tone of recent protests, featuring fans waving K-pop lightsticks and blasting songs, with a somber candlelight vigil seen during former President Park Geun-hye's impeachment in 2016. As South Korea faces an uncertain political future, global media has underscored the potential challenges ahead for one of Asia's most resilient democracies. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
It has happened only 3 times in the nation's constitutional history. Today, the president was impeached by the National Assembly. For analysis, we're joined by attorney An Jun-sung. Professor An, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
We assume 12 lawmakers from the ruling People Power Party voted in favor of removing the president. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think there's 2 perspectives. First, from the legal perspective, 12 dissenting vote, right, is sufficient to pass constitutional threshold, which is a 2/3 of the National Assembly members. So there were 204 votes in favor of the motion, and that's the constitute the sufficiency. And from political perspective, I think 12 vote made that action become a bipartisan support. So I think that's important because that's about 11% of PPP members, 12 members, but still that's the much more than the 2% last week. So I think that's the kind of a significant number. It's not still not really major number, but still a significant development on side.
Then what do you think motivated those ruling party lawmakers to vote for yes?
Well, I guess growing number of PPP members become suspicious about what really happened on December 3rd. So I think a number of PPP members thinking about perhaps someone is lying, basically. And we have, since the last week, we have investigation and we have testimonies, new evidence came out, and which kind of support the situation is something inconsistent with what the President Yoon said on the TV. So I think that's the one. And other thing is that they think about the future, what happened after impeachment process over. So I guess they're thinking about the future planning about what to do if the impeachment passed. I guess it's better to prepare early than sorry, right? So I think they want to be well prepared for whatever happens in the future. So if it's a prevailing wind is changing, I guess they will try to, hop on the prevailing wind. I guess that's what's happening right now.
And I also think that public sentiment also have played a role in that. Now, the president seems to be preparing his legal battle against the opposition. What would be the contending legal points at the Constitutional Court?
That's a very interesting question. I read the text about the motion made by the National Assembly. Basically, there's only one legal issue, insurrection charge. It's very interesting because previously, I guess there are many cases, and I think they put some other issues about how he, returned the bill to the National Assembly, a lot of minor things, basically don't more the measures approach. But now I think they really focus on single issue, insurrection charge. In a way, they intentionally speed up the process so that they minimize, the judiciary burden on the judicial side and the justice, so that they can speed up the process intentionally. Right? Also, I think that the interesting about their argument, right? I think that President Yoon is thinking about his action was basically saying that was justified to do so under the circumstance, whatever thinking he has. It is basically thinking that their argument, and it sounds like it's more like a political question doctrine. Basically means that there are certain questions supposed not to be answered or reviewed by the court, judiciary power, because it's by nature it's not really judicial legal issue. I think that's basically what he's saying, but I think in a way I think it's kind of a delaying tactic. For me, it's not really a strong argument saying that if you making in the litigation situation, whatever criminal or civil litigation, even the Constitutional Court, if you're saying that, hey court, you don't have a jurisdiction, right? I don't think they like to hear whatever they say because they have a jurisdiction to hear the case. But there's very strong. I think it's a very weak argument, to make at this moment.
Then it's hard to predict, but how likely is the Constitutional Court uphold the motion, the impeachment motion?
It's very interesting. Depends on the question who you ask, right? I think as President Yoon might thinking that it's a 50-50 chance because if we see the previous cases, there were 2 impeachment cases in the history of Korean, modern Korean history. President Nomuyeon and then Park Geun-hye, right? And Nomuyeon case was dismissed, right? Basically it's rejected. And then the Park Geun-hye case was upheld, right? So I guess looking at 50-50 chance. But however, in my opinion, I think it's very highly likely the Constitutional Court will uphold the motion because that unlike the 2 previous cases, this time is about whether he committed a crime. Actually, not only it's not about the inaction, something negligent act made by Park Geun-hye when it happened was that inaction was the problem at the time of the Seoul ferry accident, right? So what happened was a missing 7-hour issue, but now we are talking about on the December 3rd whether he crossed the line, whether unconstitutional or illegal act, anything happens. I think that's it's very clear because there's so much new evidence coming out and new testimony coming out every day. I think I'm expecting that maybe between shorter than 3 months to decide what happens, I think.
Professor, let's talk about politics. Internal conflict within the ruling People Power Party has widened leading up to this voting, particularly between the pro-Han and pro-Yoon factions. What could become of the party?
Well, I guess that the time to maybe it's time to break up. I guess for them because I don't think they can get together because they now know it's at the beginning I thought it's about the voting about impeachment, whether we are impeached President Yoon, but at the end I realized that maybe in reality it's about it's a non-confident vote against the chairman Han basically because that look at it, we have 12 votes apparently from the PPP that was even less than the number than who vote against the declaration of the martial law, right? So I think that's from the chairman Han perspective is kind of a big failure for him, political failure, I guess. So it's time for them. But the problem is that if they split and where the pro-Han people goes, right? Should they create a party? But if they want to be independent party, a new party, they need to get at least 12 lawmakers. But apparently, I think the maximum number they got is about 18 who vote against the martial law decree. So that's because why important under the National Assembly Act, and you have a minimum, you need 20 lawmakers to form a negotiation body. So it means they're recognized as the really significant political player in the National Assembly. So as of today, there's only two negotiation body at the National Assembly, PPP and DP. So they need to be a third-party player, the big player. So that's the one I think they have to think about it. I'm sure the pro-Han side try to get more people on their side, and then and pro-Yoon side try not to lose any of them from at this moment. I think kind of a hassling, right?
We'll have to see how it all plays out. And aside from today's decision to oust the president from office, a series of investigations into the martial law incident are taking place. What's the outlook there?
Yeah, I think that what happened right now is too complicated, and then three different authorities try to do their own independent work. I think that's really big problem and wasting resources and time. So I think that one of the first thing they have to do, the National Assembly passed the one about special prosecutor bill, right? Basically, so if the acting president to approve it and appoint the special prosecutors, and they will be centralized process and coordinated all the work together and then speed up the process. But however, from the legal perspective, you look at a big picture, there are two different litigation we initiated. First was criminal investigation about whether have the insurrection charge happening, and on the other hand, there is the constitutional cases Yoon has already facing. That's two different arguments because the criminal argument and the constitutional argument are different. So, and it depends on what kind of argument he make it. There's a lot of things happen. But according to what happened right now, I think President Yoon is really based on the political question argument very strongly, which I think they are unlikely accepted by neither court, either criminal court or the constitutional court.
Professor, if the impeachment motion is upheld at the Constitutional Court, what would both the ruling and opposition parties be planning for a possible early presidential election?
Yeah, I think it's about the timing issue, and who's going to control the next time is that how can you control the time, basically? And if you see that the Constitutional Court side and constitutional case, we have two windows, and there's a 180 days window for the Constitutional Court to make a determination whether they uphold or reject the motion. And then if it upheld, it will be the 60-day window for the election. So that's it. And however, in the Nomuyon case, they only took 2 months, and the Park Geun-hye case only 3 months. So let's get an average of about 2.5 months. That's about the maximum 3 months, and then that's the one maybe not good for the DP because the DP under the Korean election law, if you have a charge for the investigated or litigated for the election crimes, what happened was you get 3 months window for the second trial and 3 months for the Supreme Court determination. So they got Lee Jae-myung only had a 6 months timeline, or maximum 6 months to. Now I guess it's about 5 months because already 1 month almost passed. So about 5 months window, Lee Jae-myung has it to control it. So I'm sure PPP try to speed up, try to delay it as much as they possible, and DP try to delay the least litigation as much as possible. So it's about timing issue. Who comes first? Who comes late? Yeah, that's the issue.
Attorney An Jun-sung, thank you for your insights. Appreciate it. And that brings an end to our special coverage. Arirang News will be back with more updates tomorrow at noon Korea time. Thank you for watching.